Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Uh, Thank you for coming back and nice to have you here. So, August 1921, 2021. I have several news to share with you. I will start with Secretary General Antonio Guterres briefing at UN headquarters, and after that I have several other news and a couple of videos at the end. Thank you again. Welcome back. Let's get started. So the briefings first.
Good afternoon. Today is World Humanitarian Day, and our thoughts are with humanitarians and the many millions of people that they strive to help every day. They are providing life-saving support in places like Haiti, where our hearts ache at the suffering and devastating toll from the recent earthquake. The UN is on the ground providing relief, including medical supplies and health care, clean water and emergency shelter. The Deputy Secretary General is traveling to Haiti to see how we can boost our support to the Haitian people. Today is also the National Day of Afghanistan, and I want to extend a special message to the people of Afghanistan during this trying time. The United Nations is with you and committed to stay and deliver to help advance peace, opportunity, and human rights for all. On this World Humanitarian Day, I am particularly concerned with the situation in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian people have suffered too much. Humanitarian conditions are hellish. Millions of people are in need, infrastructure has been destroyed, and we have heard first-hand accounts of women who have been subjected to unspeakable violence. And the spread of the conflict has ensnared even more people in its horror. It is time for all parties to recognize that there is no military solution, and it's vital to preserve the unity and stability of Ethiopia, which is critical to the region and beyond. To give peace a chance, I'm making an appeal for action on three fronts. First, I call on all parties to immediately cease hostilities. Second, unrestricted humanitarian access everywhere must be guaranteed, together with the re-establishment of public services in all affected areas. And third, conditions must be created to allow for the start of an Ethiopian-led political dialogue to find a solution for the crisis. Such a dialogue can contribute to addressing the underlying causes of the conflict and ensure Ethiopian voices direct the pathway to peace. The UN will continue to work together with the African Union, regional and international partners to support the Ethiopian people on the way to peace and reconciliation. Now is the time to put an end to the suffering. All of these steps are critical to make it happen. Thank you.
Hi, Secretary General Sherwin Bryce, South African Broadcasting. You call for
a cessation of hostilities, unrestricted access in terms of humanitarian access and political dialogue. What support do you expect the Security Council to give you in terms of that call? And can you tell us who you've been talking to in the region over the last few days? Have you talked to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia? What was your message to him?
I've been in intense contacts in trying to create the conditions to make cessation of hostilities happen. I consulted with Chairperson Faki in order to guarantee that the UN and the AU will be in the same line, and we see eye to eye on what needs to be done. I had several contacts with Prime Minister Abiy, and I asked Martin Griffiths as my personal envoy to have contacts. He had met, but to have contacts again with Mr. Debretsion, and we did everything to try to convince both sides of the importance of a cessation of hostilities. At the same time, I've been talking to several countries in the region, and I've been noticing that there is, in all countries of the region, a clear perspective that it's essential to preserve the unity and stability of Ethiopia, and it's essential to end the hostilities. Now, I've been in close contact also with other initiatives. There is an American initiative taking place, as we know, so we are all, I believe, pushing in the same direction. I briefed the Security Council yesterday, and the Security Council will be meeting again next week, and I hope that this appeal that I make can be shared by the whole of the international community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. The Ethiopian government has been blocking all humanitarian aid from getting into Tigray to the point where NGO staffs and others have been having to ration their own food, and people are starving. What can the UN do? What should the UN do to try and end this blockade and get food to the people in need?
Well, first of all, we have been actively working inside Tigray and also in the areas around where people are having serious problems at the present moment. And we have been insisting with all the parties, and in particular the Ethiopian government, that full humanitarian access must be granted. And I once again spoke with the Prime Minister, even this morning, on this issue. It's very important that both sides accept cessation of hostilities, and it's very important that everybody understands that the establishment of public services and full humanitarian access to all the areas, Tigray, Afar, Amara, full humanitarian access is absolutely essential.
And what was their response?
What was the response when you said? There was a commitment that things would improve, but we will need to see what happens in the next few days.
Thank you, Secretary General. A question for you on Afghanistan. We heard yesterday from some of the UN officials on the ground about the importance of the airport in Afghanistan and what might happen after the US gives up control of the airport. Do you think there's a role for the UN to play in running and possibly securing that airport? And what will you be asking from the UN Security Council? What will you be asking for in terms of a new mandate and expanded footprint for the UN in Afghanistan?
First of all, I'm not asking for the UN to manage the airport. I think that the present situation is extremely fluid, and we need to be careful in advancing with any proposal for which we have not the capacity to deliver. I think it's important that there is a guarantee of effective safety in the airport, and that a way is found for a transition for a normal situation in the future. But this is part of the whole package of discussions that necessarily will have to take place between the international community and the Taliban. On the other hand, sorry, the second.
Just with regard to so you're saying you don't see a role for the UN in running the airport, is that correct?
I don't think the UN is asking and I don't think we have the capacity to run an airport. We can cooperate, obviously, with all the parties if our presence is considered useful, but to think the UN can run the airport in the present circumstances, knowing what our presence is on the ground, is, of course, I think, not realistic.
That was the second question. Do you think the UN presence should be expanded? Do you think the Security Council should give you a bigger mandate?
We have a mandate that is to be reviewed. And obviously, the review of the mandate will depend on what kind of situation we will have. I asked the Security Council in my meeting and then in the closed session that it's very important for the international community to be united, for all members of the Security Council, but in general for the international community to be united, to use the only leverage that exists, which is the interest of the Taliban for legitimacy, for recognition. And for that to be possible, I think it's important that the international community, speaking one single voice, considers or makes it clear that it's essential to have an inclusive government representing all the different ethnic groups that exist in the country, that there will be full respect for human rights, and in particular the question of human rights is very important for us, and there will be the possibility to evacuate without problems those people that would be in danger to be able to leave, and finally that the territory should never be used again by any terrorist organization of wherever area of action. So I think it's very important the international community to be united and to have a common front in discussion with the Taliban for these conditions to take place. If we are successful on these, I think there is a perspective for a renewal of the mandate with one kind of characteristics. If things go wrong, of course, we will have to look into a mandate adapted to whatever will come.
Secretary General James Bays from Al Jazeera. As you just said, the Taliban are signalling that they are offering an inclusive government. That suggests the window of diplomacy is open. Have you spoken to the Taliban leadership? If not, are you urgently trying to do so?
I have not spoken myself, but our people in Afghanistan is in close contact with the Taliban and very strongly conveying that message.
Will you speak to them?
I'm ready to speak myself when it is clear with whom should I speak, for what purpose. I was in close contact the day before yesterday with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Affairs of Qatar. We are following the Qatari initiative and supporting it. Let's hope that there will be a way for an inclusive government in Afghanistan.
Okay, that's Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General, briefing on the situation or on a humanitarian situation in Haiti, the conflict in Ethiopia, and the Afghanistan concerns. So, as you heard, he is repeating the call on the Ethiopian government to resolve the war and other conflicts through peaceful means, through dialogue, reconciliation. But from all indications on Ethiopian's central government side, there is no a will. There is no will. You see, they are repeatedly calling on citizens to get armed and join the federal force, the army, to fight TDF and other forces. And another way also forcing citizens, Ethiopian citizens, to demonstrate in various parts of Ethiopia, in Oromia and the capital city. So there is no interest. Abiy Ahmed and his Prosperity Party want to win this war by force, by military means. You saw him visiting different countries for that purpose. I have a report that one later on, but there is no will anyway. So when he say in Ethiopian initiated dialogue, I don't think Ethiopia will initiate any dialogue on this conflict to end this conflict by peaceful means. So concerned citizens media prefer UN initiative or European Union initiative or US. I know they're gonna think maybe US is biased, but somebody should encourage the groups, all Ethiopians, to come together, not Ethiopian initiative. I don't think they're gonna do it. I don't think there is an interest right there. The call is good, but the interest is lacking from Ethiopian side. All they're doing is calling on citizens to continue the bloodshed and forcing them, and they paying them to protest against TDF, against OLA and other forces. So there is no interest. I don't think Ethiopia can do that. So the international community should attempt to initiate the dialogue or force Ethiopia by other means to engage in dialogue. And Antonio Guterres just missing Oromo region. He talked about the northern part, the Tigray, but Oromia is also in a very serious challenge. Transportation and other services are cut. So Oromia should be also included in a future briefing. I know international media are not reporting. That is a challenge we have over there. So Oromia also, there is a big challenge. Okay, that's the beginning of the program by the briefing. Let's try to finish other news quickly as much as possible. Then I have 2 videos at the end. Thank you again for coming back. Updates on Ethiopian civil war. As Oromia Liberation Army is controlling the Kenya-Ethiopian border and even set up the checkpoint and conducting searches on vehicles coming from or passing through this major road, the major road connecting Ethiopia to Kenya. Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, continues its major military operations against the Oromia militia and Ethiopian Defense Forces in western and eastern Wallagga, Borana, in Shoa Zone, in Sululta district in Addis Ababa and other regions of Oromia. So now is coming to Arat Kilo very slowly. Sululta is in Addis Ababa. So Ole is advancing very quickly, and the operation is coming to the doorstep to Prime Minister. The Ethiopian government security forces killed at least 9 Oromo youths, most of them students, in Gindabarat city, Western Shoa zone, by just blaming them as Oneg Sheni supporters. So 9 youths just within a week. The internet, phone service, and public transportation impacted especially in western and eastern Wallagga, where OLA operations are very active. The government shut down communication services to hide its brutal conduct against the residents living in those areas. TDF, Tigray Defense Force, captured Debre Tabor, the major city in southern Gondar, and moving forward to capture Wereta, Gondar, Bahardar, and other major towns and cities. The Ethiopian government continuously forcing citizens to come out and protest against TDF and OLA cooperations and their operation against the government. Citizens are threatened with severe penalties if they do not show up for these Prosperity Party organized demonstrations in Adama, Addis Ababa, and other towns and cities. Some protesters also received some compensation for bringing their horses for the protest by Ethiopian government. The Ethiopian government is also exposing Ethiopians to COVID-19 infections through the overcrowded and unprotected demonstration. But when the opposition parties request permission for public protest, the government uses COVID-19 as excuses to deny them. So when it is a government supporter, when the protesters are organized by the government, they don't care about COVID-19, they don't care about the infections. Let whoever get infected, they don't care. They don't care. The COVID-19 numbers are getting higher, and still they don't care. They just let them protest. But when the opposition want to have the same protest, for some reason, the government deny them, and they use COVID-19 as excuses. Tell them, oh, for safety reason, we don't allow you to protest. So there's a double standard. So the people are suffering by this double standard. There is no protection. There is no face mask. You see the videos and the photographs of thousands and thousands of people came to the street by force by Ethiopian government and by some compensation payment. The Amara region's government requested about 4 billion Ethiopian birr to continue its war operations against TDF. It is not clear if the federal government able to cover these war operations expenses, and the region's regular budget It is not clear if the federal government able to cover these war operations expenses plus the region's regular yearly budget. Ethiopia under Abiy Ahmed's leadership, as I said before, faced with multiple wars, economic downturns, global diplomatic and financial isolations, high rate of unemployment, ethnic tension, huge number of internal displacement, inflation, and other unbearable challenges. Ethiopia is in a very bad shape under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And the concerned citizens media called upon him to consider resigning, but he's still there. He wants to continue despite all these challenges, and he wants to continue the bloodshed. And okay. Today, the Federal High Court Lideta branch, First Constitutional and Anti-Terrorism Bench, rejected the bail application of 21 top TPLF leaders who are under federal police custody. The defense team asked the court to have their client released and follow their trials from outside. The prosecutor, on its part, argued that the multiple charges against the defendants, such as attempts to dismantle the government by force since 2018 and attacking the Northern Command in November last year, does not warrant bail. The prosecutor reminded the court that a lot of civilians were killed in the war that followed. The court heard the argument on both sides and rejected the bail application by the defendant's bill and gave alternative appointment to November 01, 2021 to see defendant counterclaim. The court also ordered the federal police to arrest the 41 other defendants, including the first defendant, Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael, chairman and executive committee member of the Tigray People Liberation Front, TPLF. The prosecutor brought terrorism charges against 62 defendants in the case filed on Debretsion Gebremichael on July 23, 2021. The file includes executive committee and cabinet members of the regional state government, which was ousted by the federal government and subsequently replaced by the interim administration in December 2020. So, credit for Addis Standard. So, do you expect the Ethiopian government to settle this issue through dialogue? No. These are another indication. They are, holding this, and they are looking for Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael to face imprisonment and the trial. And this is a leader and now leading effective military campaign to remove Abiy Ahmed from power and to create a better situation for that country. So Ethiopia or Prime Minister cannot be a trusted guy to conduct any future peaceful dialogue. He must be replaced. He must consider resigning because you don't see any interest. Number one, they have to remove this TDF and OLA from terrorist designation. If they are interested, they're gonna do it. I don't think so. They want to continue the war. Ethiopia and Turkey leaders talk in Ankara. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and President Recep Erdogan, who met in Turkey city and Ankara last day, advised on the Tigray conflict, the border dispute between Sudan and Ethiopia, and the military agreement were also announced. Details of the agreement were not disclosed, although the two nations signed a military and a financial agreement. In his remark on the Tigray war, President Erdogan called for a peaceful resolution of the conflict and said his country would do everything in its power to resolve it. Recalling that Ethiopia is now going through a difficult time, he suggested that a peaceful solution to the Tigray conflict should be sought. The president, who says that Ethiopia plays a key role in African countries, underscored the country's place, saying that both the unequivocal and the peaceful of its role are good for us. He also cited the government's emphasis on resolving the conflict peacefully, saying if the conflict continues, then the neighboring nations of the zone will also suffer. President Erdogan also raised the border dispute and spate between Sudan and Ethiopia in Al-Fashqa, hoping the conflict would end in talks. He told reporters that he had held talks with the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and with Abdullah al-Burhan, the chairman of the Sudan Transitional Council, a week ago. We stand ready to provide all kinds of support for a peaceful end, he said. The leaders of the two countries have addressed on their centuries-old relationship as well as on the strengthening of ties in the world of health, wealth, trade, and investment. Turkey's investment in Ethiopia is 2.5 billion with a focus on infrastructure, transportation, textiles, and other sectors. The president also mentioned that several Turkish companies were continuing wealth to Ethiopia's imports, and he also recalled the hiring of tens of thousands of Ethiopians. Prime Minister Abiy, for his part, expressed his government's position that his country would work strongly to strengthen trade and investment relations in the two countries. He also replied to the president that we would also create an environment of convenience for the Turkish investors. The two leaders also signed political, diplomatic, economic, and social engagement agreements. He also praised Turkey's cooperation and friendship during this important period, saying relations between the two countries were based on respect, trust, and cooperation. The Prime Minister completed his one-day public visit of Turkey and returned to Addis Ababa on Wednesday. So credit for this one is BBC. So the Prime Minister is looking for whatever help he can get to continue his work. He is not looking for peaceful solution. He went to Asmara, he went to Turkey, and he is going around like a madman to get some weapons. Probably he's looking for drones and tanks and other heavy weapons so he can continue his civil war. He is not looking. He is losing at this time. The sun is setting on him. His plan, his operation is not working. As I reported at the beginning, OLA, TDF operations are expanding. And they are, especially TDF and OLF, they are, confiscating heavy weapons, tanks, and other artilleries from the government. So he's losing. He is now nervous because, the situation concerning his power is in a danger now. So he is looking to get something. Now, some reports are now suggesting like Eritrea still is not out from Tigray. Eritreans are controlling the western part of Tigray, and they are supporting Abiy Ahmed still. So the international community, they must continue their pressure in demanding the Eritreans' withdrawal completely from Tigray. So some fresh reports suggest that they are in western Tigray. They are fighting TDF in helping the Amara militia and the Ethiopian Defense Forces. They are not out from Tigray. So some other report also suggested Ethiopia is getting some drones from Iran. Now he is in Turkey. He talked to Turkey president. Some signed agreement. I don't know the timing of the implementation. Also Sudan. Sudan also visited Turkey and probably blocked him from getting some drones and tanks to wage a war against his own people for his own power, and instead of resolving this domestic conflict through peaceful means. So he's trying to get it, and he's doing everything, but I don't think he will get it. Thanks to Sudanese for visiting Turkey first, lacked it, and warned Turkey not to provide any weapons. Also, thanks to the United States for sending, the special envoy to United Arab Emirates. That's done with purpose to lack the Abiy Ahmed main resources for weapons and money and other supports from United Arab Emirates. So now that one is lacked, that one is stopped. So he has to look for other countries to wage this civil war, to continue the bloodbath. He will not be successful. The days are numbered. He has to resolve it. He has to open for dialogue and reconciliation. It's better for him. Okay, the other Human Rights Watch report is a damning report on Ethiopia again, targeting Tigrayans businesses, targeting and arresting Tigrayans just by identifying them by ID. So this report is like 12 pages, very detailed report how Abiy Ahmed undercover security forces plus the federal police targeting them, targeting the Tigrayan business. I reported about this before too. So this is again reported. It came out on August 18, 2021. I'm gonna read a little bit. If you are interested, it's a 12-page. Too many details you can read, but I'm gonna give you a little bit details. Ethiopia, ethnic Tigrayans forcibly disappeared. Discriminatory arrest, detention, business closure in Addis Ababa. This is only in Addis Ababa. But Abiy Ahmed operation is not only in Addis Ababa. This is witness-based, media reported. That's why they got, but Gambela, other areas, they do the same thing. They are arresting Tigrayans, they are shutting Tigrayans' businesses and abusing them, causing the disappearance, creating misery for family. On June, Ethiopia security forces in recent weeks have carried out rampant arbitrary arrest and enforced disappearance of Tigrayans in Addis Ababa, said Letitia Beder, Horn of Africa Director of Human Rights Watch. The government should immediately stop its ethnic profiling, which has cast unjustified suspicion on Tigrayans, produce information of everyone being held, and provide redress to victims. In July and August, Human Rights Watch interview by phone 8 current and former Tigrayan detainees, 4 Tigrayan business owners, and 25 relatives of detainees, witness to abuses, and lawyers. Human Rights Watch also reviewed court, police documents, and relevant photos. On August 11, email to Attorney General Gideon Timotheus summarizing the Human Rights Watch finding and requesting further information hasn't received a response. This research supplement interview in November and December 2020 with 9 people subjected to profiling, search, and arbitrary arrest of Tigrayans in Addis Ababa after the conflict in Tigray began in November. In mid-July, the Addis Ababa Police Commissioner Getu Argao told the media that over 300 Tigrayans had been arrested, saying they were under investigation for their alleged support for Tigrayans' former ruling party, the Tigray People Liberation Front, which Ethiopia Parliament designated as terrorist group in May. Although the Attorney General told the media that ordinary citizens will not be affected, the arrests that Human Rights Watch researched, most, if not all, appear to have been targeted on the basis of ethnicity. Witnesses said that security forces stopped and arrested Tigrayans on the streets and the cafe and other public places and in their home and workplace, often during warrantless search. In many cases, security forces checked people's identification cards to confirm their identity before taking them to a police station or other detention facilities. A Tigrayan political activist, and Tigrayan aid workers, both based in Addis Ababa, were among those arrested in July, as were at least a dozen of journalists and media workers who were reported on abuses against Tigrayans. On July 2nd, the authorities arrested a 34-year-old Tigrayan man along with a friend and two other Tigrayans in the cafe in the Haya Hulet neighborhood, popular with Tigrayans. He said that 12 police officers entered the cafe, checked their IDs, and took them to Karamara police station, where all detainees were separated by ethnicity. While the man was released the following day, his friend was among approximately 90 Tigrayans who were not. 2 days later, the man received a call from his friend using a borrowed phone, who told him, "We are being transported by 16 buses. There are police, intelligence, and also military." The man called the number the next day, and the police officer said that the detainees had been taken to Afar. See, from Addis Ababa to Afar. This by itself is illegal. It's going to create misery to the family. They cannot visit. It will make harder. It's an abuse by itself to move from Addis Ababa to Afar. The media and the witnesses have reported that since June 28, authorities have closed dozens of businesses in Addis Ababa belonging to Tigrayans, particularly in Haya Hulet and several neighborhoods in Bole district. For instance, on June 29, police and intelligence agents arrested a hotel owner and shut the hotel but released his colleagues, who is ethnic Amara. This is damning. The Tigrayan owner's brother said that within 2 days, security forces moved the hotel owner to undisclosed location, and his whereabouts remain unknown. Security forces have also intimidated and threatened people, including detainees and their relatives. Many of the police officers who were in the compound of the detention center were insulting them, said a woman detained in July. They were using abusive words that are directly attached with identity. They said I was venomous snake. Venomous snake. Ethiopian government abuses against Tigrayans in Addis Ababa started after the Tigrayan conflict began in November. In November and December, the authorities arbitrarily arrested and dismissed from work Tigrayans working in the government, security, and civil services, profiled Tigrayans during systematic ID checks, and searched homes without warrant, in many cases repeatedly. These actions have restricted Tigrayans' freedom of movement throughout the duration of the conflict. Most of the unlawful tactics currently being used by the security forces, such as secretly transferring suspects among various police authorities to evade legal requirements, and prolonged detention periods, were used in 2020 against arbitrarily detained opposition figures and journalists. Enforced disappearances are defined under international human rights law as the arrest of or detention of a person by a state official or their agent, followed by a refusal to acknowledge the arrest or to reveal the person's fate or whereabouts. Forcibly disappeared people are outside the protection of the law, making them more vulnerable to torture, extrajudicial execution, and other abuses. Ethiopian authorities should comply with the international legal provision against arbitrary deprivation of liberty and enforced disappearance, Human Rights Watch said. As an urgent matter, they should provide families with information about their loved ones, release those wrongfully detained, and transfer civilians held in military custody to civilian control. The Ethiopian government ethnic profiling, arrest, detention, and enforced disappearances of Tigrayans is unlawful and unjust, Bader said. Donor countries should raise their concerns with the government to immediately end and investigate these discriminatory practices that threaten to worsen ethnic tension in the country. So it's a long, very long, but I will end here. But if you want to read the details, you will see how the Ethiopian government is abusing Tigrayans, just based on their ethnicity, shutting their businesses, arresting them, torturing them, threatening them with all, So if you are interested, go to Human Rights Watch website and print and read this very damning report, really, about Tigrayans. That's why we say this government is not friendly to anyone. He is doing the same thing in Oromia against Oromos by blaming them on Shane and killing them, assassinating them in public, or by using undercover operatives. Turkey offered to broker a amicable solution for Sudan-Ethiopia border dispute. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Wednesday proposed to mediate a brotherly solution to the border dispute between Sudan and Ethiopia. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was in Ankara for a one-day working visit where he had talks with President Erdogan. Also, officials from the two countries signed a number of deals, including military framework and a military financial agreement. Following the signing ceremony, the Turkish president pointed to the need for stability in Ethiopia and offered to mediate a solution for the Tigray conflict and the border tension with Sudan. So that's Sudan Tribune, that's Turkish interest to mediate a peaceful solution for the Tigray conflict and the border issue between Sudan and Ethiopia. So we will see if Abiy Ahmed changes his mind and listen to any to resolve this issue. Okay, the last part for today's reading, joint statement on the situation of women and girls in Afghanistan. And this is signed by so many countries. This statement has been co-signed by Albania, Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, European Union, Honduras, Guatemala, North Macedonia, New Zealand, Norway, Paraguay, Senegal, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. Ethiopia is not included. Ethiopia is out of the international stage. So here the statement reads about the situation in Afghanistan, especially concerning women and girls. We are deeply worried about Afghan women and girls, their rights to education, work, and the freedom of movement. We call on those in position of power and authorities across Afghanistan to guarantee their protection. Afghan women and girls, as all Afghan people, deserve to live in safety, security, and dignity. Any form of discrimination and abuse should be prevented. We, the international community, stand ready to assist them with humanitarian aid and support to ensure that their voice can be heard. We will monitor closely how any future government ensures rights and freedoms that have become an integral part of the life of women and girls in Afghanistan during the last 20 years. So the scare of the Taliban maybe they can reverse about the changes made in the last 20 years. If they apply the Sharia law, if they deny them education for girls, women, and deny them work and holding position in the government. So yes, before 20 years ago it was tough. After Taliban was removed, women went to school, got government jobs, some of them even governors of some district. So that's why all these countries, the United States, the United Kingdom, European Union, have this joint statement to warn the Taliban, don't do this. So that's the reading part. Thank you. Let's finish up today's presentation with a couple of short videos. Okay.
He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for ending a conflict with Eritrea. Now he is under pressure to stop another.
Hold on. This is about the visit, the Prime Minister visits in Ankara, Turkey, with the President of Turkey. Let's read it. So let's see these two videos and finish up today's presentation.
He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for ending a conflict with Eritrea. Now he is under pressure to stop another. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed arrived in Ankara at a crucial time for his country. It is one of the few visits he has made abroad since the conflict in Tigray began in November. Turkey too has been facing its own challenges. The Ethiopian leader began by offering his condolences and support for Turkey's struggle with the recent wildfires. The main reason for Ethiopian leader's visit is to improve economic and trade ties. Turkey's relations with Africa has gained momentum in the last decade, especially with Ethiopia, the second most populous country in the continent. Turkey is a major investor there with nearly $3 billion across various sectors. But the conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region is posing a risk to those investments, and the Turkish government wants to help.
Tigray bölgesindeki gelişmeleri
Ethiopia's peace and integrity is important to us. If the situation deteriorates, all the countries in the region will be affected. We are ready to make every contribution to the problem's solution.
Ethiopia's federal forces have been fighting the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or the TPLF, a once powerful entity that had dominated Ethiopian politics for nearly 3 decades. Abiy Ahmed sent his forces to the region, accusing Tigrayan rebels of attacking a federal military base in the north and destabilizing the central government. The conflict has killed thousands of people and displaced hundreds of thousands more, sparking a major refugee crisis. And the Prime Minister has asked for Turkey's support.
We appreciate Turkey showing genuine friendship to Ethiopia in its time of need. Once again, let me express my deep appreciation to you and through you to the people and government of the Republic of Turkey for the consistent support and friendship.
This visit was particularly important as the two countries mark more than 100 years of diplomatic relations. While the two leaders may not come up with immediate solutions to the issues facing Ethiopia, the talk could lead to closer relations. Both sides in Ethiopia blame each other for rights abuses in Tigray, while many civilians in the region remain cut off from humanitarian aid. And Turkey, like many others, wants an end to the war to stop a human catastrophe in the making. Rasul Serdar, Al Jazeera, Ankara.
Okay, this is the last video.
There is still a lot of unrest. There's still a very volatile situation here in
Afghanistan.
Evidence of that, we are getting reports of some very serious disturbances in Jalalabad. Now, this is a very important city to the east of Kabul. It's towards the border with Pakistan. It's a very important trading city and so on. And there has been protests there about the national flag. Now, since we've seen the arrival of the Taliban, they have gradually been removing Afghanistan's national flag and replacing it with a Taliban flag. We have seen that here in Kabul. A lot of people are not happy with that. A lot of people have been very upset by that, but they have by and large had to just put up with it. In Jalalabad, they have not put up with it. There has been resistance to that by a fairly sizable part of the community there, and we have seen uploaded on social media protests in the streets of people waving the national flag, really quite large protests of hundreds, if not thousands of people. And we do know that they have put the flag back up again in an important square in Jalalabad, and that there have been clashes with the Taliban, with reports of gunfire, and also that a number of people have been both killed and injured. So that is still developing, but it is a worrying situation, and it also comes at a very sensitive time here. It is a day before Afghanistan's Independence Day, so feelings are running high, their tensions are running high, and it has resulted in what we are seeing to be fatal clashes.
Okay. Thank you to Al Jazeera for that reporting. So that's the closing. And I'm going to say this and close today's presentation. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia is not a trustworthy partner to settle Ethiopia's conflict. Ethiopia has so many problems. So many problems. Ethiopia needs immediate solution from the global community to initiate dialogue, reconciliation among all stakeholders, and naming different organizations and ignoring them or isolating them will not serve, or waging a public war against them will not solve that country's problem. So the United Nations should actively engage with the Prime Minister and force him possibly before too late. Is the bloodshed is still going on. He is not winning. He is on the losing side. He knows it, but he's still looking for weapons, heavy weapons, to create more bloodshed. So he must be stopped. Ethiopians must demand the resignation of this prime minister instead of protesting for him, denouncing OLA or TDF. That strategy didn't work for Derg. It will not work for Prosperity Party. They have to know. I don't know. And instead of demanding their rights, they're just being used as a propaganda tools for this prime minister. For one person is creating problem in that country. For one person's seat, for one person's power. So Ethiopians must unite against this prime minister before too late, before too much bloodshed, before Ethiopians engulfed in bloodbath. And the international community, the United States, European unions, and others must act urgently to stop this madman before getting other drones or tanks from other countries. So that's my closing. Thank you for joining me, for sharing your time with Concerned Citizens Media. Please comment, share, like, subscribe to my YouTube channel so we can be the voice for the voiceless. Thank you again. See you next time with other news and updates. So long, everyone, and be safe.